Rocco.
Do you see Bill?
Yeah, I got him.
Got him? Where's Tom? We got Tom.
Got Tom. I think 1, 2, 3, 4. We're good.
Okay.
Can't see Tom or Bill yet.
I'm waiting for Tom and Bill.
There we go.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll just do a quick roll call. Mayor Bontempo is not here. Ms. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Catali?
Here.
Dr. Pascucci?
Here.
Mr. Santana?
Here.
Deputy Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
And you're streaming, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have the flag?
I have a flag right here.
Okay, great. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the
United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence to honor our police and troops both here and abroad. Thank you. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that Mayor Bontempo is not with us this evening because he's celebrating graduation of one of his children, and we wish all of our graduates today and tomorrow the very best. So if we can go ahead and proceed then with the approval of minutes.
Approval of minutes for the June 9, 2020 executive and public sessions and the June 15, 2020 special meeting, which was sent to the committee on July 8th for their review and approval.
Motion?
Move.
Mr. Catali?
I'll approve, I can't approve the special meeting, but I'll approve minutes for the original meeting, if I wasn't present for the special meeting.
Okay. Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
So the meetings were successfully approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have public comment on agenda items only. These are items that are already on the existing agenda. And just a reminder that you need to state your name and your full address, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. So do we have any comments on agenda items only?
I don't see anybody's hand up right now.
Okay.
Still nothing.
All right. Seeing none, let's move on to the consent agenda.
Consent agenda would be resolutions 2020-203 to 2020-218.
We have a motion.
Move. Second.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes, with a note.
Okay, so resolutions 2020-203 to 2020-218 have been successfully passed.
Okay, moving along. Introduction of ordinances.
Introduction of ordinance 2020-13, authorizing the vacation of a portion of an easement across block 17.01, lot 12.17 on the tax maps of the township of Holmdel.
Move. Second.
Any discussion?
Motion to adopt on first reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press to set the public hearing for July 28th, 2020. Mr. Critelli?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-13 will be scheduled for the next meeting for July 28th for hearing. Next order of business is the hearing of ordinance 2020-12. It's approving real property conveyance relative to block 30.07, lot 2708, which is 17 Wood Hollow Drive. Public portion, comment would be first.
Is there any public comment on ordinance 2020-12 only?
I'm not seeing any hands up.
Okay.
Motion to adopt on final reading and publish in the Asbury Park Press according to law.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Critelli?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-12 has been successfully adopted.
Next, we have reports. We'll start with the administrator.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The only thing I wanted to comment on tonight was the swim club. Thanks to tireless efforts of our recreation department, the swim club opened up on July 3rd. It is absolutely beautiful up there. We're able to install touchless fixtures, toilets and sinks. We have bathroom attendants. Everybody, all of the members have been very respectful. It's moving along very quickly. We've been open 11 out of the 12 days. We closed for the tropical storm on Friday. Our largest attendance, and I think it was any body of water in the state of New Jersey, was Sunday. We had, I think, about 350 people throughout the day. Our average has been about 200 people. So I just want to thank the recreation staff enormously and welcome all of the members. And there are still some memberships available. If anybody wants to join, it's really, really a spectacular facility. Other than that, there's no additional updates aside from what's on the agenda. Thank you.
And I would just like to add my thanks to everyone on the recreation department and at the swim club. I have received nothing but positive feedback, and I have been a regular there as well. And the club has not looked this clean in the 30 years I've been going there. It sparkles, and it's a very safe and comfortable environment. And I can say that as someone who's been very COVID cautious. So I really appreciate all the effort that has gone into it. And I think it's providing mental health as well as physical health opportunities for our community. So thank you. Next up, yep. Bill, Chief Financial Officer, any report?
I have one comment. Yesterday, we received the $6.99 million for the ordinances 2019-09 and 2019-23. We borrowed that from the Monmouth County Improvement Authority. Our net interest cost on that is 0.45% for 1 year, which is extremely low. The county waived the guarantee fee, which helped decrease that interest rate. And that's all I really have to comment on.
Are those two ordinances? I'm not sure what
It
they
was
are.
2019-09, which includes the fire truck and also the firehouse. And 2019-23 was an easement on the border of Colts Neck, Marlborough, and Holmdel.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Professional reports. Mike Collins, our attorney.
Sure. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of the Township Committee. I don't have any specific report, but I'm available if you have any questions.
I have none.
No question.
And the engineer is not here tonight. Sharon, do you have anything to add on their behalf? Updates on anything?
There's nothing specific to add, but if you have any questions on anything, I'm happy to answer those.
Just any update on, we're moving along with the firehouse, correct?
We are moving along with the firehouse. We submitted to the post office a proposed lease amendment to get the space that we need. We are waiting to hear back from the firehouse, and we have expect to have design development plans for the firehouse in the next week and a half, and hopefully we'll have a meeting with the fire department at that point. So it's moving along.
Yes, great. Good to hear. Good to hear. Okay, boards and committees. Let's go round robin here with the township committee. Tom, anything?
No report, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Prakash, any reports on your committees?
No reports, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pascucci, any reports from your end?
No reports, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, that leaves me, and I have one. The Traffic and Bike Safety Committee met last night in Holmdel Park with masks and socially distanced to continue looking at ways that we can increase the pedestrian and bike friendly nature of our town. And I'm very excited about some of the progress that we're making, both at communicating to members of the community the various paths and ways that they can bike and get through town. And also the second major focus is going to be on education and safety. And we're working with some programs, and I would like to thank our representatives from the police department on that committee, Matt and Tom, for getting us information on some various programs that are already in place that we should be able to turnkey and leverage, and ways that we can, really make everybody safer, drivers, cars, pedestrians. So stay tuned. I expect good things to come. We've only had a few meetings, but they're making some nice progress and staying on it. So I was happy to hear that. Any other general business from the township committee? Yes? Nope. All right. At this point, we are going to open to public comment. Again, I would like to remind everyone relative to public comment that you need to state your name, your full address. You have a maximum of 3 minutes, and I'm going to ask that everyone speak appropriately and with decorum, and so that we can have a civil exchange here. And we will go through people in order. There are quite a few people in attendance at tonight's meeting. So I would also suggest, if somebody has spoken before you and you're simply endorsing their point of view or support their point of view, to simply say so. You don't need to repeat it verbatim, because that will allow everyone the opportunity who has something new to add or to speak to get their chance to do so. So with that, I would turn it to Wendy. Are you controlling the hands?
Yes, okay. Yes, so the first one we have is Kay Collins.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Can you please
Okay.
state your name and full address?
Sure. My name is Kai Collins, and I am at 127 South Telegraph Hill Road
In Holmdel.
in Holmdel.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I just wanted to join tonight and support, just some people who have been working towards having a discussion on the blue line on our streets. I'll just start by saying I'd like to see both petitions be torn up, and we could just start over using a different tone, work to address this topic through conversation, not through demands. Hold on, I just lost. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, not through demands and petitions and that sort of thing, which I feel like that's what's been done. And I understand that sometimes that's what it takes to get the ball rolling. It's what I was asked to do by two friends in town was sign both petitions, the one to keep it and the one to remove it. So that's kind of how I got started down this road. I'm like, okay, well, I got to understand more about this. So I chose not to decide to sign either petition. It just didn't sit right with me. I thought, why are we making this divide worse? We're just choosing sides. I had to go back and see why we added it and when we added it, because I'm
You're cutting out a little.
We've been here about 4 years. I learned that Holmdel made the decision. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Just let me know if I cut out again. I'm going to move. I learned that Holmdel made the decision to paint the thin blue line on the street in 2016. And my understanding was that it was, seen as a symbol of support for our police, but also as a symbol of dismissiveness to the Black Lives Matter movement and just a different point of view altogether. It seems like we have one symbol with maybe two different perceptions. 4 years later, it's still a problem. So why approach it now? And I'm just going to leave that question right here for the time being, because I think it is a question that we should talk about more. And I keep coming back to this predominantly white, affluent community, knowing that we don't all see the line through the same prism. I hope that we can all agree that this is not appropriate to dismiss the conversation after a round of petitioning. I hope we do keep talking about it. Personally, I can't see how a symbol that can be divisive will ever serve to improve our police relationships with their communities. So I'm wondering what our goal is. And, I'm wondering if it's even possible to change the perception of this line, because to me, a line can connect 2 points. It doesn't have to divide two groups. The issue I see is that it is unfortunately serving to do the latter. And I think we need to talk more about why this has happened. I still feel we all have a lot to learn, looking back at our history and where we came from and why we've made the decisions that we've made. And I'm just going to conclude by saying that.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to conclude by saying thank you. I'm a work in progress. I think we all are. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
Okay, next we have Wei Ping Wang. I hope I said that right.
Yep.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Wei Ping Wang, 19 Mulberry Lane, Holmdel, New Jersey. First, I agree what Kai just mentioned. And to me, it's really not about this sign, blue sign or not. But on the other hand, police officers in our town are never off duty. They are dedicated to protect the public at any time, any place. We always have police to do house check whenever we travel out of town. That provides us a great sense of security. Because of that, we really appreciate our policemen and women for their effort and the works, especially during last couple of months, this pandemic time. They are fight in front of the line as a first responder. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Saraf. Saraf, that's all it says.
Sarah F. It looks like on mine. Yep.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry, my name is Sarah. F is just my first name, my last name, first initial. I live in 26 Wildedge Lane.
Sarah, what's your full name, please?
Sarah Faisal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I live in 26 Wildedge Lane in Holmdel, New Jersey. Yeah. So I also wanted to make a comment about the blue line. The question that we have been receiving for the past few weeks is, how can a blue line be racist when it's just a line? With that argument, how can a Confederate flag be racist if it's just a flag? Are those not just flags? When minorities and people of color go through some degree of racism every day to an extent that will never be understood by their white counterparts, and also tell you that they find something to be a threat towards them, then it's your job as an elected official who has a duty to uphold inclusivity and equity in your town to listen to what we have to say. There is no evidence suggesting that the status of being a police officer has resulted in discrimination or targeting of violence equivalent to the pervasive institutional violence faced by people of color. To single-sidedly support police officers who are defended and protected by the government, but not a marginalized group in society that have been systematically oppressed for centuries, brings question to Holmdel residents' support towards all lives. We believe that conversation of supporting BLM also extends towards everyone, including other POCs. According to what also Kai was saying, we cannot dismantle the hatred, violence, and police brutality until we come together as a community and address instances of prejudice and subtle racism against Black individuals within our very own community. Black Lives Matter is not a political movement you choose to show allyship for. The lives of Black individuals either matter to you or you're a racist. Many argue that the line has nothing to do with BLM, but BLM advocates for nonviolent civil disobedience in protest against incidents of police brutality towards Black individuals. Regardless of whether a cop is good or bad, all remain complicit in a system that treats Black lives as less valuable than white lives. Regardless of whether you believe this has anything to do with BLM, the lack of support in terms of a public acknowledgement in town for Black lives is still problematic. With that being said, saying this has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter just proves your ignorance and lack of regard for Black individuals. Also, it's been mentioned that the majority of this town is in support for keeping the blue line. Is the majority of the town in support for keeping the line? Or is the majority of the town misinformed about the illegalness and counter-racism behind the line? The petition created by Eileen included sources as to why Blue Lives Matter symbols, especially on the roads, were not only a violation of traffic laws, but were also denounced as racist by major anti-racist organizations. Additionally, information on how poor communities are over-policed and have higher rates of false or unjust charges, leading to higher crime rates, were also cited, as well as information describing the historical relation of the blue line with white supremacy and racism. Accounts of police officers who admit to the bastardization and structural racism behind the police systems were also included, as well as the counts of towns that had recently removed their blue lines in support for BLM. However, the counter petition made by Lori Titchen had only 3 very short paragraphs basically urging people to sign if they quote unquote support the police. No argument against the information that we had issued were displayed anywhere in this petition, so many residents that had signed were not exposed to our side of the argument, which just proves a lack of ignorance on that creator's part.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Sydney Goldson.
Sydney?
Hi.
Hi, Sydney.
Hi, my name is Sydney Goldson. I live on 10 Malvern Road in Holmdel. And I'd also like to ask for the removal of the thin blue line. So the whole idea of Blue Lives Matter is a very dismissive reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's consistently been used to discredit the people who are trying to criticize police brutality. And I hope that you all realize that the thin blue line sends a message that the township doesn't care about holding police accountable and also doesn't care about its Black citizens, such as myself. I greatly encourage the township to remove the line, which would demonstrate that you are not dismissive of the BLM movement. And we are not asking for this because we hate the police or because we disrespect the police. We are asking for this because we believe that the police should always strive to do better for their communities while respecting the lives and rights of all citizens, regardless of their skin color. And I can't stop being Black, but police officers make the choice to become officers and are also often complicit in police brutality and institutional racism. And I think that they can make the choice to be better. But by having this in blue line, you're showing that you don't really care about holding them accountable. So I believe that Holmdel should not be complicit in the silencing of Black Lives Matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, Wendy.
You're muted.
You're muted, Wendy.
Next, we have Karen Menon.
Karen?
Karan.
Yeah, Karan, yeah.
Karan?
Yeah, hello. I'm Karan Menon. I live on 43 Windswept Road. And is my time starting? I guess it is.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you guys for being so respectful about this. I just want to say I was raised here. This town has treated me well. I don't take that for granted when I talk about this. But this town doesn't exist in a bubble. You know, Holmdel is part of a larger national community, and to stay silent about issues that affect the country as a whole just because we don't experience them here would be the act of an irresponsible citizen, I think. And I know you guys would agree with that because in 2016, you put up this line as a show of support for officers ambushed in Dallas, a city 1,500 miles away. You know, Holmdel, New Jersey doesn't have an epidemic of police officers being killed, but we choose to take a national perspective when it comes to that side of the police, a more honorable role of guardians who laid down their lives for us, which is respectable. But when they were putting up that line, no one got in their way. No one tried to reason with them that all government officials matter. Or are you saying that police are better than firemen? No, obviously nobody said that because everyone understood that would be an insensitive, irrelevant thing to say. So you can't take a national stance only when it suits you. If you claim to care about all lives, I know Committeeman Pascucci has so boldly said he does, surely you won't stop at just police lives. Surely you would be enraged by the fact that Black lives statistically are more likely to be killed by police than white Americans, not in line of duty, but as civilians, and surely you would at least say something about it. If you want to honor the good parts of policing, which we see a lot more of in this town, that's great, that's your right, and that's obviously deserved. But when you do that without acknowledging some of the issues with policing, which literally the entire rest of the country is talking about, it seems like you want to pretend those issues don't exist. And for people who are more likely to experience that bad side of policing in their lifetime, namely minorities like me, it makes some of us feel less welcome to call out those problems when we see them, because apparently our community doesn't think those problems exist. And I hope you can see that. I've seen 11 Facebook posts on the mayor's page in the past 2 weeks about standing with law enforcement. I've seen absolutely nothing discussing Black Lives Matter or George Floyd or even mentioning the movement by name. And the only thing I could find was a comment asking who allowed the Holmdel Black Lives Matter to rally to happen, to which the Holmdel Republican Party replied, not the township committee. And I know Mayor Bontempo is not here, but like, not only does this show me where he stands on the cause, it makes me feel a little ashamed to live here. You know, I want to claim, if you want to claim that this blue line has nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter movement, either do something to show your support for Black Lives Matter or take down the blue line. It's very simple. Right now, there's a very uncomfortable imbalance. And it'd be very, very reassuring if after this meeting, if you have time, you could say something to show where you stand on that issue, just so I know I live in a town where my leaders are aware of both the good and bad sides of the system they uphold, instead of blindly supporting causes that will get them votes in this town, but don't reflect the reality of this country. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to respond at this point.
After you are.
Okay, so I'd just like to say, I think clearly many of you were not at our prior meeting when we did discuss this issue. Mr. Santana read a lengthy statement. I spoke as well and publicly stated that I believe that Black Lives Matter. In addition, I read a full-page statement from our chief of police, which is in our township newsletter and on the website. And I'm not going to read it again tonight, but it directly addressed the murder of George Floyd and the police department's absolute disgust with that incident and their strong feelings against that type of incident, and address the extent to which that would never be tolerated here, and the extent to which they invest heavily in de-escalation training, cultural sensitivity training, etc. So I think it's important for everyone. I'm not going to redo that whole meeting, but to go back and take a look at what was said then, and to also read the letter from our chief of police. Mr. Santana, did you want to make some comments as well before we continue?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
You
all right.
stated.
Okay, thank you. And
Deputy Mayor, I'm fine too. I'd like to make a comment at the end, but I'm going to say right now, I take offense that if I disagree with someone, that makes me a racist. But at the end, after I listen to the citizens, I will make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And I was just going to ask Mr. Collins, on the legal, do you have anything to add on the legal issue relative to the line at this point?
No, Deputy Mayor, I don't have any comments to be made publicly. If the committee wanted to discuss legal advice, we would do so in executive session.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and continue then. Wendy, who's next?
Next, we have Chrissy Gabor.
Chrissy?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. My name is Christiana Gabor, and I live on 10 Bordensbrook Way. So let me first begin by saying that no one attending this meeting hates police officers. We're not calling for the removal of the line because we hate police officers, but rather we're calling for its removal because in the current climate of the United States, many consider this racist, inconsiderate, tone deaf, and honestly just plain insensitive. I'll ask a rhetorical question. Why was the thin blue line painted in the first place? You'll argue that it's to show our support for the Holmdel Police Department and make the point that Blue Lives Matter. However, if this is the case, why was this not done for Black Lives Matter? Why was a Black Lives Matter sign not painted on the road, such as in New York City and Washington, D.C.? To this, I say, if you do not have a problem with Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, you very obviously have a problem with the Black part of Black Lives Matter. When someone hears Blue Lives Matter, they don't say all professions matter. They don't call for Red Lives Matter for firefighters or teachers' lives matter or doctors' lives matter. It assumes that the lives of all professions matter. So why can't this assumption apply to Black Lives Matter? On another note, this line is unequivocally illegal. According to the Federal Highway Administration, painting or striping on road dividers violates Section 3A.06 of the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices for Streets and Highways. And the US Department of Transportation itself made a statement that reads, quote, "There are many appropriate and fitting ways to recognize service to the public that do not involve the modification of a traffic control device. So thus, a blue line is not in conformance with the standard on centerline markings." Mayor Bontempo said in an article from Patch.com, "While today we are having a national discussion on race relations in our country, my support for the men and women who protect us every day is unfaltering. Of course, there's no problem with having respect for some law enforcement officers. However, there is a key word in the statement that is especially problematic, and that is the use of the word while. By using this phrase, Mayor Bontempo admits that even considering the brutal murders and untimely deaths of people of color at the hands of the police, he still chooses to honor law enforcement officers instead. However, I don't see his unfaltering support for members of the Black community. Let me remind you all that you can take off a uniform and you can take off a badge, but you cannot take off the skin in which you are born. As committee members, you are public servants. It's your responsibility to act in accordance with the law, which you are not doing, seeing as the line itself is illegal. It's your responsibility to act in the best interests of the town and to hear everyone's voices, voices which have been ignored. This situation has given us one large takeaway, and that is that the Holmdel Council acts in their own interests rather than the interests of the town as a whole. Our pleas have been ignored time and time again, and it is time that you start listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Alice Lay.
Alice?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good evening. My name is Alice Lai, and I live at 13 Orchard Avenue. A lot of us here are here tonight to talk about the Blue Line, but first I want to say that I'm very glad that we're having this discussion as a town. It's an important one to be having, and while it's certainly not easy, I'm hoping by the end of this meeting, we can all walk away a bit more educated on recent events. Even though as Americans, we are personally free to interpret this Blue Line in any way we please, to many people in this community, this Blue Line is a painful reminder of where our priorities lie that refuses to acknowledge the legitimacy of the Black Lives Matter movement's plight. It's a reminder that this country is not listening to Black people that simply don't want to get harmed for the color of their skin. It is unethical to champion such a divisive symbol on public property. Mr. Santana, in the op-ed that you wrote that was published this morning, you compared the situation with this Blue Line with your anecdote of a Jewish person visiting a Hindu friend in India, where the Hindu friend's house had swastikas on it. But this situation is different, because this is all of our homes. This street belongs to all of us, and therefore, to answer your question, we must be like that father-in-law in your story and cover up symbols that provoke and antagonize our cohabitants. On a broader scale, police in this country are allowed to get away with terrible actions that cost families and friends their loved ones without fear of accountability or retribution. To champion our local police while these racially motivated atrocities are happening and our justice system refuses to punish those who cause innocent people harm is to ignore the issue at hand. Police are already one of the most protected groups in this country. Even though many of us have had overwhelmingly positive experiences with our own police, they are still part of the system that blindly gives the benefit of the doubt to law enforcement in all of these situations. The removal of the Blue Line is not a rejection of our local police. It's a rejection of the unjust American policing system that allows bad people to get away with crime under the guise of being a pillar of the community. It's a rejection of the idea that we can't afford our Black neighbors and friends the same peace of mind that we have when it comes to interacting with our law enforcement. As a town, we must show solidarity with Black Lives Matter, recognize the issues that have long plagued this country, and reject ideas and symbols that serve to undermine Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lai. I'm glad you read my op-ed.
Next, we have Alan Wu.
Has my time started?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
Okay.
Dick, please
I
state
am
your name and address.
Yep. I am Alan Wu of 6 Croydon Court, Holmdel, New Jersey. I firmly oppose the parties demanding that the thin blue line be removed from our streets. The first notable contention brought by Mrs. Eileen Huang, a leader of this movement, is that the line carries racist connotations. According to a notable Instagram post she made on the 26th of June at @Eileen Huang, she states, quote, "These lines only started appearing in late 2016 as a specific response to Black Lives Matter that excuses and even endorses police brutality against communities of color," end quote. This assertion is entirely untrue. The blue line was painted on Crawford's Corner Road in 2016 as a celebration for a 50th anniversary of our township's police force, which, according to the About Police page on the Holmdel Police website at www.holmdelpolice.org, was founded by a township ordinance in 1966. It had absolutely nothing to do with then recent police violence or violence against police, racism, or any other wide-reaching social issues of national importance. Another one of Ms. Hang's complaints is that, according to another one of her Instagram posts made just last night, quote, "It is clear that our town officials want to act as if this line were not controversial. It is their job to listen to constituents, and they are not listening," end quote. However, I find it quite interesting that Ms. Huang's petition to remove the line has thus far received 1323 signatures as I speak right now. While an opposing petition supporting the blue line, however, has the support of 7,526 signatories right this second. While the petitions are not a perfect indicator of public opinion, a petition receiving nearly 6 times the amount of votes in a smaller window of time should serve as a reminder of what their constituents desire. It is also worth noting that Section 3A.06.02.c of the MUTCD, earlier mentioned by Ms. Gabor, states that a double line is only defined as 2 parallel lines separated by a discernible space, with no mention of what this discernible space shall include, and it includes absolutely no mention of any other details concerning a double line. Thank you, and that is all I have to say.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Catherine.
Hi,
Catherine?
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm Catherine Ho from 143 Northampton Drive. I would just like to show my support for Alice, Karan, Sydney, and Chrissy. And also, as a resident who has grown up in Holmdel and has gone through the Holmdel school systems, it would be a disappointment to see members of our town ignoring the fact that racism exists in Holmdel. Several acts of racism, harassment, and racial profiling has been swept under the rug by administrators of schools and town authorities. The matter we address today regards a blue line painted on one of our town's main streets years ago. Holmdel has continuously showed support for the police force, yet barely anything to support the Black Lives Matter movement. As said before, wanting to take down and remove the blue line is not a movement against the police force. The protest, which nearly happened a month ago, was organized by younger students and their families, only after specifically requesting such an idea. Yet I did not hear any citizens requesting to put up this blue line years ago. If this town feels so strongly about supporting a profession that is supposedly being oppressed, should we not care more about an entire group of people being oppressed simply based off of the color of their skin and not the color of their uniform? Blue Lives Matter is a counter movement with racist origins, and the public symbolism of this counter movement shows this town's subtle opposition to Black Lives Matter movement. The lack of support for the Black Lives Matter movement only proves this point even further. If there is a symbolic line of support for a police force, I encourage that our town also puts up a public symbol of support for the Black Lives Matter movement if there are no intents of removing this line. In a predominantly white town, and as a minority resident, I strongly believe that this is important to continuously show our active support to diversity in this community, not just now, but in the future as well. It should be the responsibility and duty of this town to make every member of our community feel accepted and respected in this town. Being the minority in a predominantly white town can already be intimidating, so why not show our support to those who need it? Black Lives Matter now and forever. I call on our council to comment and respond to this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
We have Justine P.
Justine?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, my name is Justine, and I live on 9 Chippewa Court.
Justine, what's your last, Justine, excuse me, your last name for the record?
Justine Prophet. As a Black resident of this town, I can assert that the meaning of this blue line goes way beyond its literal definition. For me and many other people of color in this town, it's a tangible symbol of all the prejudices we've had to endure within this community. It's a reminder that people of color are perpetually being disregarded by Holmdel constituents, and it's proof that Holmdel prioritizes glorifying faulty institutions over the comfort of their marginalized townsmen. This blue line, regardless of its initial purpose, is now regarded as an emblem for the Blue Lives Matter movement. a movement that was curated to divert attention away from the Black Lives Matter cause and is thus inherently racist. So why do you support the Blue Lives Matter movement? Why are you victimizing police for experiencing the occupational hazards listed in their job description? Why are you referring to police as a blue life when they can easily strip themselves of their uniform, unlike I can do with my skin? Why are you defending a system that disproportionately brutalizes and murders Black people? And why are you so willing to absolve these policemen of any accountability? The policing institution, both historically and presently, is deeply problematic and corrupt. Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people and are twice as likely to be unarmed. Hundreds of Black people die a year from this, and yet less than 1.3% of these policemen are convicted due to policies that protect them, like qualified immunity. And this is only the surface. To clarify, I'm not saying that every cop has maniacal intentions or that they're even all inherently bad. However, in being complicit, they are actively choosing to perpetuate this unjust system. So I ask the question again, why are you rewarding this institution with a symbol of any sort? To commend what police have done without acknowledging the bad is a severe injustice to the victims of police brutality, the Black community, and ultimately to yourself. While your skin color may shield you from the harsh realities Black people face, that doesn't mean this doesn't concern you. This shouldn't be a partisan issue, but rather a matter of basic human rights. Stand in solidarity with us, or at least seek to understand where we're coming from so we can work towards a more equitable society. We're not asking for much. We're simply demanding that you acknowledge Black Lives Matter. And that starts with acknowledging the perils we face instead of disregarding it because you get to live a life of privilege. And it also starts with ridding the town of morally callous symbols that attack our very grievances, like that blue line. It may just be a mere step in the right direction, but it's a necessary one. Thank you for this forum.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Kasan Little.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kason Little. I reside at 10 Huntley Road. Thank you for allowing the public to speak this evening. I also wanted to echo the same sentiments as everyone who came on before myself regarding the Blue Lives Matter line being painted on the road. I just want to say, as an African-American young man, only at 19 years old, I just want to express to you guys that I, even as an African-American man, even at a young age, is not exempt from potentially, being harmed by law enforcement or harmed by white supremacist groups. So when we say Black Lives Matter, at this very crucial point in time in our history, yes, Black Lives Matter. We're not saying that all lives doesn't matter, but we're saying that you be on the side with Black lives and show unity. At the end of the day, I can cut you, you can cut me. You know what will happen? We'll be the same color blood inside. We're all red inside. So we need you to stand with us, not only to talk the talk, but to walk the walk and act on our best interest to ensure that you're fully representing our best interest at heart on every decision-making task, every decision-making ordinance that is being sponsored, to make sure that it's representing the entire community's best interests at heart, including Black lives. We matter too. Our humanity is just as strong and just as powerful as everyone else's, and we want to feel valued in all aspects of life and in all aspects of this community and this town that we all call home. So I urge each and every one of you, and I know there's some of you on this call tonight that sits on the council or on the board that may disagree, and that's completely fine. But let me say this to you, deep down inside, and especially from years from now, history will reflect back upon you, and it will show if you were on the right side of history. This will be in the history books. Trust and believe me, and the kids and future generations will see how you act in our best interests and how you represented the entire the entire town's body at heart. So when we say Black Lives Matter, yes, Black Lives Matter at this crucial point in time, and it has been battling so many issues for well over 400 years, and still to this day, it is still a continuous struggle. And we hope that our mayor, and we hope that the entire town council act on our best interests. And if it was so quick to put a Blue Lives Matter line in the middle of the road, why are you guys not acting that quickly for Black Lives Matter? line, when we see the death of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin and Everett Gardner and Breonna Taylor, I mean, the list goes on. And unfortunately, that will not be the last name until we have the laws and the policies changed. Thank you for your time, and I hope to look forward and work with you in the future, and I hope that you represent our best interests at heart.
Thank you. Wendy?
Next, we have Guang Gao. I hope I said that right. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, please state your name and address.
My full name is Guang Guo. I live in the 7 Wagner Court, Holmdel. Yeah, I'm very glad to join this discussion. First, I would like to provide information. I joined 83 Chinese American families in Holmdel to arrange a Police Appreciation Week upon the Independence Day to show the gratitude to the police force in their own simple and plain ways. And we published that information on both patch and the tap info, just to let the whole town know what's going on in terms of the support to the police force. And I think in 2020, we are all facing many challenges around the nation. But despite this, the police force is carrying out their duty as usual with other frontline workers to keep our community safe and connected. As said by the Winston Churchill, I no longer listen to what people say, I just watch what they do. Behavior never lies, so we indeed appreciate that. And we come from all walks of life with diverse cultural background. It is very hard to imagine that a life fulfilling our ideal for social justice can be secured without the mutual trust between the police force and the community they serve. United, we will overcome any obstacle and move forward together. And just listening to some previous discussion about keeping the line. But the one thing I just feel very curious about, like those speakers all mentioned that this decision should be made by the entire township people, I think. And based on my information about the petition, I think there's 2 petitions. One is a support, keep the line. The other is remove the line. I remember the number supporting keep the line is 7,000 roughly. So I think if we call that reflect I think the people's opinion, I would truly suggest the people to look at the opinion of the whole town people in terms of this issue. And also, I think when people mention that the Appreciation Week is due to our response to the recent statement of the mayor of Holmdel and his team, which reflect their views on the police reform. On one hand, they adding the training in de-escalating techniques and purchase new body cameras, which is one very concrete actions to show their support to those police reform, also related with the Black Lives Matters. But on the other hand, they show support and respect to police officers in the same time by keeping that blue line.
Thank you.
Think yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
Next, we have Ben Kuleshov.
Ben, lost you.
I don't know what happened to him. Okay,
He
well,
was there.
Okay, next we have Karen Strickland.
Karen, unmute.
Hi. I'm so impressed.
Karen, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sorry, yes. Karen Strickland, 26 Hayward Hills Drive. I'm just so impressed with all these young people. I'm kind of beside myself. But anyway, I have great respect for Chief Miojasuski because I think he's probably one of the finest public servants we have here in Holmdel. And I was especially very impressed when he wrote in a newsletter about George Floyd's death. What happened is an indelible stain that deteriorates the trust and support that we rely on in order to perform our duties. That's a really impressive statement by a really impressive man. And I suspect the chief would not like that the focus of the very important national conversation that is going on right now is about traffic marking. The chief wrote these powerful words to recognize that there have been improprieties across the nation and we need to stand against them. Leaving that blue line up is an archaic symbol of a different time. Besides, there are too many other people in our community who deserve appreciation and support for the work they do over and beyond their assigned duties. Should we start painting lines in the road for the overworked teachers and the COVID-threatened medical workers? I think that right now we really need to let the road markings direct traffic and put signs of support in more appropriate areas and really move the discussion. I think that this discussion is very impressive, and I really liked what Ms. Collins said in the very beginning, that it's important to have it, but those lines need to go. They don't belong in Holmdel anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy, next.
Next, we have Kate. Allow to talk is not available because Kate is using an older version of Zoom. Choose promote to panelists to allow to talk. Should I do that?
Go to the next person.
Yeah, and we'll come back, and she could call in if she doesn't. Yeah, and we can give her the number.
Okay. Next, we have Annabelle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Annabelle Winchell. I'm actually a resident of Keyport, New Jersey. I live at 220 Division Street in Keyport, but I went to school in Holmdel for 9 years. I've worked in Holmdel myself for 3 years. A member of my household has worked in Holmdel for almost 20 years. And I'll be brief, but I want to state that I'm also here to support the argument for the removal of the blue line. With regards to the response that was made earlier in this meeting by council members, I want to say that symbols are very important, and you can say once in one meeting that Black Lives Matter, but it is important to understand that the sentiment of Black Lives Matter is indeed contradictory to what that blue line has come to symbolize, regardless of what the intention with painting it was. And with regards to something a resident mentioned earlier here, about the creation of the line not being in response to events happening in the world in 2016, I'd like to repeat something mentioned by somebody else earlier in this meeting, that Holmdel, Monmouth County, and New Jersey, none of this exists in a bubble. This blue line is associated with Blue Lives Matter, whose slogan and ideology has been used by white supremacist individuals and groups. And I believe it should be removed because it sends a message that every person of color who lives in Holmdel or passes through it sends a message to those people that this town values their system of policing over the lives of Black people and people of color. And I hope that the council members, as well as residents who signed the counter petition to keep it, think about that and the fact that they're supporting what has become a symbol of hate. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annabelle. Next.
We have Hannah Friedman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Hannah Friedman. I'm from 6 Ardmore Place in Holmdel. Just a few things. First of all, I, of course, want to add my support to all of my neighbors to remove the blue line. Before, it was mentioned by a neighbor that the blue line, or the Blue Lives Matter movement, is about building trust between the communities. And I think it's really quite the opposite. It disrupts that trust because it's a symbol of how there's no accountability for police because of qualified immunity, and I can go on and on, but of course I want to be quick about time. It's about these power dynamics. Someone being arrested, they feel compelled to comply because the police officer can arrest them, which has a lot of collateral consequences. They can inflict violence on them, but the citizen doesn't have that same kind of accountability from the police officer. If the police officer violates their rights, they have a lot of trouble bringing that same kind of accountability and justice there. So that's why there's that lack of trust. That blue line is representing that blind faith that we have in our law enforcement. And I think we can support our law enforcement while also demanding the best of them. They work for us. I pay my taxes every year, and I'm happy to do so because of the good that they can do for our community, but they serve us. We don't serve them. I also want to address kind of the response we've gotten from the township committee. I personally sent emails to every single township committee member. I only received one response from Committeeman Critelli. And when I reached out asking if this was going to be on the agenda, I got no response again. This is just about, you know, in the past couple months, we've been coming to a lot of these meetings, trying to engage in local politics, trying to, you know, practice civic engagement. And we've been told, oh, email this, talk to these people. Honestly, it feels like we're being sent to chase our tails when we just want to know how we can help make our community better. So if email wasn't the way, please tell us how to do that. And finally, I just want to kind of address this whole good cop, bad apple situation. The actual full quote that is getting cited about the bad apples is that one bad apple spoils the whole barrel. And so what we really need to be looking at is these systemic issues. And I believe that any good cop, any good apple would be working to bad apples don't spoil the barrel, don't affect those other communities. So if Holmdel's cops are good cops, and I sure hope that they are, I hope that they would be joining in the fight, supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and working against systemic racism. I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have James Yanello.
Good evening, James Yanello, 18 Ladwood Drive. I'm just going to preface what I'm going to say by, I'm sure some of the people on the call will view it as deflective, possibly ignorant, and hopefully not racist, because everyone who knows me knows I'm not a racist. We have some obviously very articulate and intelligent citizens on here who are very passionate. And whether we take the blue line away or add a Black Lives Matter monument or some sort of symbol, which I think is a great idea too. At this point, given the level of passion, I don't even think I care. But I just have to say that I wish these people would get together with all of their intelligence and focus on what I think is a bigger problem throughout this country. And that's the poverty, the violence, the crime, and the deaths within so many poor Black communities, where dozens every week are getting slaughtered, often by each other. Again, I wish they could take their talents and intelligence and focus on that. I think the returns would be much better. And the only other comment, the author of the Take Down the Blue Line, she goes or went to Yale. Obviously, Yale was named after a slave trader. I would hope she would take some of that energy and focus it, as others in the public arena have noticed, on changing or erasing or deleting that name of that university. And the university's response to such a renaming suggestion years ago was, well, Yale wasn't an exceptional slave trader, so we don't think we need to. And that's just absurd. Again, we have some very bright people. We have some very passionate people. Whether we do the line away, take it away, build an emblem, I don't know if I care, but I would hope they would take their energy where the biggest bang could be for the buck. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
Next, we have Eileen Huang.
Hi, my name is Eileen Huang, and I live on 10 Huntley Road. So I created the petition to remove this thin blue line because I've seen it since Colin Kaepernick took a knee in 2016 all the way until George Floyd's death, and that was insulting. With other residents, I had to march along this symbol that quietly excused and even endorsed police brutality against Black communities during Holmdel's Black Lives Matter protests. And as the NAACP and ACLU have said, the Blue Lives Matter movement that our town has openly endorsed is a purely reactionary movement that seeks to silence Black activists and critiques of police brutality. This is a racist and insulting symbol, period, that should not be on public taxpayer-funded roads. The fact that this issue, with the most heated debate I've seen in over 10 years of living here, is not even on the meeting agenda, though discussing the swim club is clear constituent suppression. Over one weekend, my petition gained over 1,200 signatures from concerned Holmdel residents and citizens across the nation, calling for the simple removal of an already fading line. However, the reaction from the mayor and the committee was disproportionate and highly unprofessional. Instead of emailing constituents back, the mayor turned to posting pro-blue line content on his party's own Facebook page, and he's not even showing up here today. Representatives of the mayor have also blocked me from commenting and have removed dissenting comments from young people on their page, a clear departure from the township's previous statement that they, quote, remain committed to protecting the free speech of those who want to peacefully protest. Additionally, this meeting itself was extremely inaccessible. The huge numbers of people who have showed up to support us are not visible and muted. None of the town committee members are even engaging with us. Some of them are even checking their phones. Everyone on this committee has proven that they're too concerned with their own career and too afraid of losing their own supporters to do the right thing. You are incompetent elected officials. The township has also pointed to a counter petition that has more signatures. It has been publicized with Facebook ads paid for by both the Holmdel Republican Party and the real Holmdel Republican Party, and did not gain signatures organically as mine did. It's astounding to me that the two dueling parties in Holmdel decided that they despise Black Lives Matter more than they despise each other. Also, during my last phone call with Administrator Roundtree, she said, quote, petitions don't matter, so why should this one? If Blue Lives Matter has no racist intent, why did counter-protesters at recent BLM protests wave flags with thin blue lines while spitting racial slurs at peaceful protesters? If the blue line represents no racist intent and serves merely as a tribute to fallen police officers, then where are the street markings in Holmdel for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Maurice Gordon, Amani Kildea, Elijah McClain, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Akai Gurley, Tony McDade, Eric Garner, and countless others? I demand the township make a similar public display honoring their lives as well, if all lives truly matter. I don't want you to say thank you for your comment at the end of this to deflect. Answer me and your constituents, because it's what you were paid and elected to do. Black lives matter, even if you think they don't. Thank you.
Next, Wendy.
I just want to mention, I believe my quote was taken out of context. I believe it was part of a conversation about how the agenda is formed, and petitions don't get items on the agenda. I just wanted to clarify that my quote was taken out of context. Additionally, I want to try to allow Kate to talk. I'm going to try to do that now.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Kate,
Hi,
are
can
you
you
there?
hear me?
Yes, please state your name and address.
My name is Kate Yashmanov and I live on 692 North Beer Street. Okay, thank you for being respectful and participating in this discussion, because it's what this town really needs, so thank you for that. But before any of you make any assumptions and generalize about me, remember that myself and the other citizens are human and we deserve the same respect that you would give your closest friends, and we all just want the best for Holmdel.
Great.
So many people question the legitimacy of advocating for the removal of a painted line. I mean, at the surface level, I agree, it sounds silly. How can it be racist when it's just a line? Why do people care so much? At this point, it seems like they're just pulling things out of thin air. But much like everything else, it's dangerous to focus solely on its literal meaning. In that sense, actors would be performing with casts on because they're told to break a leg. This line has much more weight symbolically than many are led to believe. It's known that these lines are painted in multiple towns across the state, which are in support of the Blue Lives Matter movement, which in effect counteracts Black Lives Matter. In having respectful conversations with many All Lives, Blue Lives, and Black Lives Matter supporters, it's clear there's a misunderstanding rooted in ignorance and misinformation amongst us. Blue Lives Matter is ironic because it's advocating for issues that Black Lives Matter already stands for: the reevaluation of national and local police departments in an effort to create more efficient law enforcement, lower crime rates, lower incarceration rates, and create a healthy and supported environment for police. Good police. Black Lives Matter doesn't mean only Black Lives Matter. Rather, it fights for the equality of all via shedding light on the injustice Black people have dealt with and still continue to deal with, whether or not you like to hear it. It doesn't disregard or discredit good cops either. It actually applauds them, because in this nation's police system, it's very difficult to hold their fellow cops accountable and report wrongfully charged crimes without reaping the consequences such as possible unemployment. So, by endorsing Blue Lives Matter, you are intentionally or unintentionally silencing the critical issue at hand, whilst advocating for the protection of people who are and always have been supported, protected, and funded. For example, a child hits his little brother because he was annoying him. The parents would punish the older child. If the older one said, "Oh, but remember all the good I did today, like doing the dishes, the laundry, cleaning the room," the child would still have to be punished. Why? Because the child must know that what he did was wrong, regardless of the good he's done before. Same thing here. Of course, the police system does good, but by focusing on the bad is how we fix it. By preaching Blue Lives Matter, you are shifting the light away from the issues that must be fixed. No one is taking away the credit that goes to the officers. We are just being the parents who must let the child know that what they did was wrong. These seemingly unimportant and small gestures made by local government is what contributes to the wide-scale national issues we see today. It's Mayor Buontempo and the Township Committee's job to listen and amplify the voices of its citizens, whether or not they want to. It's embarrassing how the mayor and certain committee members have been acting. Please hold your fellow colleagues accountable. Please be leaders, not cowards. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next.
I don't see any more hands raised.
Okay.
Nope. Correction. Yep. Natasha Kostic.
Natasha?
Hi, yes. This is Natasha Kostic. I live at 8 Sunrise Circle in Holmdel. I think we have seen that a lot of this township supports the police, and I think the police should feel very reassured that clearly the constituents of this town appreciate them. And I think because of that, we have to think a little bit about how are we showing support for the Black people in our community? Because the blue line, it's right outside the high school. And guess what? We have Black students in our high school. And how do they feel when they walk out of their high school and see this line? They don't feel supported. They don't feel reassured and safe. The police, I see that they can be scared for their livelihoods because of, working in the line of duty. But clearly Holmdel is giving them all the support they need. But Holmdel is not giving Black residents the support that they need, which is, it's not the way it should be. And so I was really, really impressed by the letter that the chief of police of Holmdel had written. It was incredible. I'm so glad that he has been thinking about these things. And he admitted that the police aren't perfect. And we see that they aren't perfect in Holmdel. There was a case of racial profiling in 2019. The policeman was found, not guilty. There was no body camera evidence that could be used. And, there's work to be done in Holmdel. And I'm glad the chief of police is thinking about that. And we as a town have to also admit that, as many white residents just don't experience the same things as Black residents. You just can't know their experience because you don't have it. And I think this blue line thing is really showing a division in our town that it's really upsetting to see, because a lot of us young people have come and spoken today, showing that we really care about these issues. However, the 7,000 or whatever people who signed the Keep the Blue Line petition they're not being engaged. Beyond contributing to this inflammation and this division, they don't seem to be as engaged because it doesn't actually affect their lives. So that's what we have to think about. Whose lives are being affected here, and how can we contribute positively to, making this town a better place? So thank you.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
Next, we have Anjali Lasavage. I'm sorry if I said that wrong.
Hi, no, my name is Anjali Holt. I actually am a resident of Woodbridge. I'm here on behalf of Positive Change Woodbridge. Some of the young people from your community reached out to us and asked for us to bear witness and support them because we're facing some of the same issues in our town. And the reason why I chose to speak up, because I was just observing, is because I'm witnessing some of the same tone deafness in the residents. I think a lot of people don't do the research that they need to do to really understand what Black Lives Matter stands for and what people have been going through. And they're not recognizing the divisiveness behind this line. The problem with it is it's just not about police brutality. It's also about the racists that hide behind those lines. You have racists actively attacking people of color in our community, putting threats against our bodies. Here in Woodbridge, with our peaceful protests, we've had racists who put this blue line up on their Facebook pages, who threaten violence against us. We have people that have, with their public profiles, said that they will be there to run us over, and they rep those Confederate flags. They also rep those blue lines. So I think what some of the other residents have mentioned is that it's becoming a symbol of hate. So it no longer represents the support that you feel that it does. It's starting to belong to another group of people that are using police brutality as a shield. They're saying, we have police that will harm you and get away with it, and ha ha ha. And I think we really need to do our research and be very careful of how we are portraying, you know, our society. Like, what do you want to represent here? You know, we can support our police officers. We give them a lot of money. We support them. We can support our police officers in other ways. But when you realize that something is detrimental and something is empowering and emboldening racists in your community and causing harm to people, like psychologically harm, but also threatening bodily harm, like literally, I have people threatening my children who are peaceful protesters, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that we work with, who are being threatened daily. So I think just really listen to these beautiful young people that you have who are very articulate. And for the person that spoke out against Black on Black crime, it's obvious that you have not done your research if that is your talking point. Because if you do your research, that you would understand that that is a proximity crime, and white people also harm white people, Black people harm Black people. It is people that live in your community that you tend to have disputes with. So yes, we need to tackle those issues, but we can do two things at once. So thank you so much for your time. I do want to say that you guys are doing some great things there.
Is that time, Wendy?
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's time, Anjali.
All
Thank
right,
you
well,
very
thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Wendy, who's next?
We have Sophie Hall.
Hi, my name is Sophia Hall. I live at 10 Huntley Road, and I wasn't coming here planning to speak. I came to observe, and I'm really disheartened by that, because what I've had the opportunity to observe is 8 committee members and a lawyer who, some of whom are incredibly engaged, and some of whom have not looked at this screen the entire time, are doing other things on their phones or on other laptop screens, who are yawning and literally falling asleep as members of your community are asking you to care about their lives and the lives and well-being of their neighbors and your neighbors. And that is offensive. That is offensive, and it is rude. It is rude to only acknowledge, nod, or say when somebody mentions the positive impacts that the chief of police has had on the community, and to only nod your head in agreement when somebody talks about all lives mattering. The fact that you are so uncomfortable with admitting that Black Lives Matter re-emphasizes what Sarah said earlier when she said that if you do not believe that Black Lives Matter, you are a racist. And that should not make you wince the way that it did. It is disrespectful. And to have sat through this entire meeting, not planning to speak, and to be this upset at this point shows that even if it wasn't your intention, your current actions and the way that some of you committee members have behaved during this time is incredibly disrespectful, and it makes your constituents feel unheard. So do better. Thank you.
Wait, Kathy, may I just respond? I explained to everyone, including the last rude caller, at the end, I will give a statement. I don't want to address everyone individually. I would like to listen to all the citizens, and I will make some comments, please. Thank you.
And I would just like to add that there are only 8 township committee members, there are not 8 township committee members. Here tonight, there are only 4. We only have 5 people on the whole committee. Others are administrators that work for the township. So there are only 4 township committee members here, just as a point of clarification. All right, Wendy, who's next?
Next, we have Katia Duong. Sorry.
Hi, actually, I'm Dr. Bilge Yasil Duong, Katya's mom. I'm just using her computer and her account because there was a problem with mine.
Okay.
Anyways, I just want to second.
Wait, your address, please, for the record.
8 Clark Way. 8 Clark Way.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just here to show my support to, all the young people who started and signed this petition. I signed this petition as an ally of all the Black and Brown people who live in Holmdel and beyond. And I want to also second all the incredibly powerful statements given by, by the people who signed the petition, who support the petition, who are asking for the removal of the line. I don't have much to add, except for I want to clarify one thing. I think this has come up in previous Facebook resident page discussions and other, like Holmdel Matters page discussions, that people keep saying, that all lives matter. I think by this time we should all be familiar with what Black Lives Matter mean. There's a silent 2 at the end. Black lives matter too. That's what we mean. We don't mean that other lives do not matter. Of course, all lives matter. Yep. But here we are focusing on the long history of racism and suppression and oppression of Black, Brown, and other peoples, which unfortunately continue to this day. There is a very long history of this, almost like 400 years. So we want to place the focus on that. I also want to reiterate the point that was made by a previous participant who said, we cannot really pretend that we live in this, cute little bubble in, Holmdel. Unfortunately, racism does exist in Holmdel. It just doesn't happen in the ways that we see, on television. So we don't see Holmdel police officers putting their knees on, a Black person's neck. That's not what we see in Holmdel, but we see it in other ways. We see it in, police officers, following 2 Black visitors who were actually coming to my house and then stopping them on their way and asking them what they were doing in this neighborhood, right? There was no traffic violations. That's how racism happens in suburbs. It happens very quietly. It happens when your neighbor calls the next door Asian American couple Orientals. That's how it happens, right? Racism happens when the police officer stops you and asks you for your driver's license and cannot read or spell your name and asks you, where are you from? And you say, I'm from Holmdel. Then he says, no, but where are you really from? Where did you come here? From which country, right? So it happens in subtle ways. We need to be aware of these things. And, I really appreciate all the effort and energy and time that young people are putting into this. And I also want to second what I think Sophie or Sophia, I'm sorry if I can't remember your name, has mentioned, we would like to see more attention given to this issue from some of the committee members. It's it's not respectful, so huffing and puffing or rolling your eyes, or even mentioning that you're not a racist. It's just we have heard these discussions about how fragile white people are, right? So I think we need to get over this and show our support for Black, Brown peoples of our community and their white allies. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, because of the large volume of people that we have, that every person is allowed to speak once. So we'll be taking the people next in line who have not spoken yet. Next, Wendy.
Next is Barry McCockiner.
Oh. Nope, gone.
Next is Gregory Fodor.
Hello, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Name and
retired New York City Fire Lieutenant. My brother was killed in 9/11.
Wait, Gregory, can you please back up and state your full name and address for the record?
Gregory Fodor, 32 Wild Hedge Lane in Holmdel, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm a retired New York City firefighter. My brother was killed in 9/11. I spent 7 months recovering remains there. I cannot believe these young people that are talking about Black Lives Matter. As far as I'm concerned, and if you look at the facts, Black Lives Matter is a hate group. All lives matter. All people's lives matter. To remove the blue line off that road is a disgrace to our police officers that risk their lives every day to protect us. Without the police, we are nowhere. We have no protection. When you need help, you dial 911. Without them, we have nothing. If someone breaks into your house, you need help from someone. There's only one avenue to go down to get help in Holmdel Township, and that's the police department, the fire department, and the ambulance. And to remove that line is a disgrace to them. It's a dishonor to them. No police officer in Holmdel is a racist that I know of. And to call them racist or imply that they are racist means that you are a racist. Racism has to be taken out of this country, and it's not going to be done by pointing to one ethnic group saying they're right and another ethnic group is wrong. There's two sides to the coin. There is white racism and there is black racism. There are black police officers and there are white police officers. And as far as my goings on, I worked side by side with police officers for 24 years in a black neighborhood, Bedford-Stuyvesant in New York City, and I've never met one racist police officer. If there were racist police officers in New York City, the black fraternities of the New York City Police Department would always be up in arms. This Black Lives Matter myth of systemic racism, it is a myth. There are more white people shot by police officers than black people, triple the amount every year. 13% of the population in New York City is black. They commit 50% of the murders and 70% of the violent crimes. Why aren't they shot more than the white people? So we could argue about racism, but to take the blue line down is saying to the police officers here in Holmdel, you're not appreciated. This is a disgrace. This should not be allowed. I will do everything. I will go to a lawyer. I will try to sue this township. If that line is removed, I will have a demonstration in front of that. I will do whatever I have to do. There's a card with my brother's name on it in that monument who died on 9/11. And he is probably, if he had a grave, would be turning over in it, listening to these young children so misinformed what they're saying tonight.
Thank you.
Next, we have Joey DeSoma.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Joey DeSoma, 713 Rabbit Run. I guess I would first like to say that what the previous speaker implied was insane. That the idea that Black people should be shot more is absolutely mind-boggling that someone would publicly proclaim that. To be honest, I have completely lost my train of thought since he said that because I am speechless. But I would just like to let you all know that it is not a matter of if this line gets removed, it's a matter of when. The longer that you all take to get on the right side of history, the worse that you all look. This movement is only going to spread. And I just urge you to make the right decision before things start to look really bad for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have Zelly Imani.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Zelly Imani, 10 Huntley Road. I'm deeply disappointed from what I've been hearing so far on this call. I'm a Black man, I'm a Black person living in America. And to hear someone say that Black Lives Matter is a hate group, it just brings so much pain to my heart. The Black Lives Matter movement is not a hate group, it's a movement of love. And when you really consider it, that people are coming outside in the midst of a pandemic that is disproportionately killing Black people in order to protest police violence that's disproportionately killing Black people. And people, white, Black, Hispanic, are coming out risking potentially catching this deadly virus because they love Black people so much, they love and recognize their humanity so much that they're willing to risk their lives. And that is not hate, that's something that's built on love. Because we're not saying that Black people's lives matter more than anybody else's. We're saying that Black people, specifically in America, need to be recognized, and need to be valued, and need to be protected, just like anybody else, just like all human beings deserve to live freely and be protected and feel safe. So hearing these things today in this call that we're a hate group or that we're more violent than anybody else is just deeply disturbing. I think everybody deserves to feel safe, and safety doesn't also just mean about feeling protected. It just also means that when you're walking in the street, not seeing monuments that represent hatred, whether that's Confederate monuments, whether that is a blue line, because that represents something that existed only because of the Black Lives Matter movement. It was only when people start saying Black Lives Matter when you start hearing people say Blue Lives Matter. There's no such thing as a blue life. I know it hurts a lot of people to hear that, but when you're a police officer, you can go home and you can take off that uniform. Me as a Black man, I can't go home and take off this black skin. This is something I have to live with every single day. So you as an officer, you may be in danger, wearing that uniform. But when you go back home, you're safe. Me as a Black person, even when I go home, I'm still in danger. And we've seen that with Breonna Taylor. We've seen that with so many different individuals who were killed by police officers in their very own homes. So I deeply encourage you all to reconsider this blue line and how it makes it feel to Black residents or Black people in general. And please take a stand. If you really do believe that Black Lives Matter, really consider painting this over and maybe even doing a mural that says Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next, we have John Ligma.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is John Ligma, 513 Hillside Boulevard, South San Francisco, California. I'm extremely disappointed in each and every one of you regarding how y'all have handled the blue line. I think the evidence is abundantly clear. This blue line is a horrible symbol, and the fact that people are asking for the removal of it speaks volumes about what they think about it. I lived in New Jersey for 17 years, and I have family and friends who live in Holmdel. When I visited them once, my dad and I were racially profiled by one of your precious officers. It's a shame that their taxpayer money is being used to support racist ideologies. As a Californian, y'all can suck my dick and choke on it, especially you, comedian Rocco.
You're done.
Rocco
Cut him
out.
off. Cut him off. That's inappropriate, and that is not acceptable.
Isn't that great?
Kathy, I think we've heard enough. Everyone seems to be saying the same thing, and I've learned it. Now that we're starting to get guttural people calling, I think we should say thank you, and I think the township committee should get a chance to answer all these people.
All right.
Mike.
I would recommend finishing the public comment portion. I think there's just a couple of hands left, if that's okay with the committee. But if the committee men wants to make a
immediately, if someone starts talking like that, no waiting, no seconds, stop it.
There's no disagreement that the deputy mayor, as the chair of this meeting, certainly has the power to request and demand decorum. And I think you're right to call the last speaker as being out of line with the inappropriate comments. And I think that was properly handled, and we can make sure that's handled the same way moving forward.
And let me just remind everyone, we have a few people left. You can only speak once. We are not calling on people who have already spoken. So if you've already spoken, please remove your hand. From what I can tell, that leaves 3 people. We'll take the next 3 people, and then I think we can close public comment. Go ahead, Wendy.
We have Nathan Kim.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Nathan Kim. I'm at 10 Huntley Road. I just wanted to briefly respond to the gentleman who spoke earlier in support of the blue line, who said that he's not a racist, and we could ask his friends and anyone who knew him personally, and they would also agree that he's not a racist. I feel like this is a really common kind of belief among us, and I want to say I totally agree in that I could find probably every single person who knows him and find that nobody believes that he's a racist. But the truth is that no matter how hard how or what you feel about Black people, even if you find no hatred in your heart, even if you have Black friends and colleagues and peers, if you support anti-Black legislation and policy and symbolism, what you actually support is called racism. To say it in another way, I want to echo historian Naomi Murakawa as she recasts and lends new light on W.E.B. Du Bois's famous words. If the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line, meaning segregation and decolonization, the problem of the 21st century is the problem of colorblindness. It is racism preserved across school district lines. It is racism no longer set in place by official redlining, but by supposedly colorblind credit scores. It is believing that fighting for Black lives is hateful, and believing that belief in itself is not racist. It is supposedly colorblind law and order policies erected during times of decreasing crime, that put police in areas where Black people are, often not even because people explicitly believe Black people need to be controlled and policed, although that is a major cause, but because of the deeply misguided but ingrained belief that Black people are criminals, and a belief that is not visible to the naked eye. As a speaker before me said, racism in the suburbs happens quietly. It doesn't happen in lynchings that we can read about in history textbooks. It happens in a world of ways that are obscured precisely so that it can be continued. As our nation comes to fight against that obfuscation and pulls back the curtains, as it recognizes that those people shouting "preserve the blue line" are the ones protesting against Black lives, it's time for Holmdel to do the same by removing that racist thin blue line. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
Next, we have Sid.
Yeah, hi, this is Sid Knock. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sid, name and address.
Sid Knock, 1 Tiburon Drive, Holmdel. I'm going to keep this my comments here non-emotionless as far as I can. I'm appalled at some of the emotions being expressed by some of the township committee members. As leaders, you should display high emotional quotient, not low emotional quotient, number one. Number two, I'm appalled at some of the comments I heard from some residents of Holmdel who call Black Lives Matter a racist group. I thought I lived in a town that was inclusive. I've lived here 22 years. I've never faced any form of racism. I know the police very well. I've been a neighborhood watch captain for the last 15 years. I know John Medishevsky when he was running the neighborhood watch program. I know Lieutenant Pickett very well. I have his cell number. I know these police people. They are very good people. They're not racist. However, the idea of painting a blue line on the road is not a Holmdel issue. It's a national issue. This blue line was painted across the country. If there was a monument to be built in the honor of the police, I'm all for it. Let's do it, because I know these guys. They're honorable people. They serve well. I work with them. Okay? So let's just understand the difference between a local issue and a national issue. If this was just a local issue, it's a different matter. If it's a national issue where Black Lives Matter is being and racism is being identified with that blue line, let's remove it. It's as simple as that. I couldn't care if it stays or if it goes, but it has become a national symbol used by many politicians across the country, for good or for worse, to symbolize that as a symbol of hate, and it needs to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
Next, we have Janice.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd just like to say that.
Oh, wait, Janice, there's very, very bad feedback. Do you have your phone and computer on? Turn one off.
Okay, are you good now?
Yes, and please state your full name and address for the record.
Janice Fodor, 32 Wild Hedge Lane in Holmdel.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I'm in support of keeping the blue line. I feel it's important to show support for our police department in town and nationwide. The law and order is the force that keeps our country safe and secure. It's important for these guys that are out there every day to know that we're in support of them. With people coming out and say they want the line removed and yet they support the police, I find that a conflict. Maybe I'm not understanding how you can support it and say you support the police, but you don't want to show support for the police. Is that what that means? My husband was on earlier. He was stating statistics, and his statement was misconstrued by other observers of this Zoom meeting. He did not say that anything about, he was referring to the numbers that the FBI has released as far as the number of crimes that are committed, etc. Police officers, when they do an injustice, they are subject to the rule of law. That's what this country needs, is people to be subject to the rule of law. The first persons that are subject to that are a police officer. The police officer out there every day doing their job to protect all of us. If we don't have that and they don't know that we are in support of them, we are in trouble as a town, we are in trouble as a country. That's the most important thing, is law and order. So to skew numbers and spew things that are just not true and make the police officers seem as if they're not doing their job well is a distrust and disrepresentation of the police officers across this whole country. So I am in full support. I hope the Township Committee will vote to keep the line, because I think it's important that these police officers know there are people in this town. 7,000 people responded to that survey. What survey, whatever. From what I heard, 1,200 versus 7,000. Our town would like to see the line stay there. Please keep it. It's important for everyone to know that this town is in support of our police. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Wendy.
We have Alex Halberstram.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Alex Halberstam, and I'm a resident of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm going to keep this very short as I'm not a resident of Holmdel, but I'd like to add a message to let the council know that people like me around the country are watching how Holmdel listens to its Black residents and residents of color. I would like to support Sarah, Sydney, Karan, Chrissy, Alice, Catherine, Justine, Kason, Annabelle, Hannah, Eileen, Kate, Anjali, Sophie, Joey, Zelly, John, Nathan, Sid, and the other residents of Holmdel calling for the removal of the Blue Lives Matter Thin Blue Line. Organizations such as the NAACP and ACLU have called Blue Lives Matter symbols racist and anti-Black. Regardless of why the line in Holmdel was drawn, comes across as tone-deaf and intolerant in the context of conversations happening about policing and anti-Black racism across the country, especially considering the mayor's active support of police and obvious silence on Black Lives Matter and Holmdel's large pro-police rallies. This line seems at best questionable, but much more likely alienating, racist, and absolutely unnecessary. Remove the line. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next we have Lori Tejan.
Hi, my name is Lori Tejan. I'm at 96 Middletown Road in Holmdel. I'm actually the one that started the counter petition in Holmdel. The day I started it, I got a message from the woman who started the original petition to move the blue line. And it was an extremely nasty message calling me a racist and telling me that no matter what we did, the blue line would not stay. Let me tell you a little bit about myself to give you some background. I was an executive in the media industry for many, many years. I head up communications for both CNN and Time Warner. So I'm a journalist by trade and have been studying police issues for over 20 years. I'm also the sister of a fallen police officer. My brother was murdered while he was providing first aid to a Black woman, and his body was actually found over hers when the towers came down. In addition, I've run a charity in town locally for over 20 years and raised close to $10 million, 90% of which goes to minority communities, mainly the Black community locally here in Monmouth County. So I think I hold a very interesting place in this conversation because I have not only tremendous love for police officers, but tremendous love and respect for the Black community. And unlike many people commenting on here, I've been extremely active in that community, not just posting on Facebook. So what I'd like to say is that that blue line, along with the red line that represents fire departments, has been around since the 1950s. That blue line has nothing to do with the BLM movement. That blue line was laid over my brother's casket after he gave his life helping a Black woman. He didn't see color. He didn't see religion. He didn't see anything other than people needing help. I will not stand for the fact that a small group of people who have spread enormous amount of hate to me through Facebook for standing up for what I believe in, I won't stand for them taking the meaning of the blue line and changing it. It's been around long before BLM, and it will be around long after. So I stand fully with our police officers, our good police officers, and I stand with all the police officers across the country who are horrified what happened to George Floyd. You can support cops and you can support our Black neighbors. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. This blue line needs to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Alex McCarthy. Not available because using an older version of Zoom. How did you do that last time, Sharon?
Can you promote him?
I don't think I can.
Can you give him?
It says promote to panelists. No?
No.
No.
Can you give him the phone number?
Sure.
One moment.
I got it.
You have it? Okay.
Yep. If you dial in, it's 312-626-6799. And then do they need the password?
It looks like he dropped off.
Okay, let's give it a minute and see if he's going to call in. The number again is 312-626-6799. And if you need the password, it's 592806.
No.
No, I don't have any other hands raised, Kathy.
All right. Seeing no more hands for public comment, let's close public comment and move to comment from township committee members.
There's one hand.
Yep.
One hand, I'm sorry.
What?
There's a hand.
There's one hand that just came up. It's Jimmy.
Okay, Jimmy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm Jimmy. I'm calling from Edison. Here's the
Jimmy,
thing.
stop, please. I need your full name and address.
Jimmy Beach. I'm calling from 30 Oak Tree Road at Edison.
Thank you.
Here's my problem. I understand there's a lot of anger and frustration going around, but I need you guys to see this from a point of compassion and sympathy. What's going on in this country is a huge problem. There's an undeniable problem with police brutality, systemic oppression, and violence against African Americans from the police, from the government. And all people are asking you to do is show some basic empathy and understand the problem at large and offer support as elected officials, as human beings, really, to recognize the larger problem going on. And all I keep seeing is eye-rolling smirks. Bill Jr. 2015 hasn't even looked at the camera once this entire meeting. Like, what is up with that? You guys are elected officials, please. This isn't, I'm not calling you out personally. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your character. I'm sure deep down inside, you all do support the Black Lives Matter movement and support justice. That is what the larger mission is. So it's as simple as that. There is no conflict here. It's not even a political issue, Black Lives Matter. It's not even about politics. It's about, what is right. And so please, my voice is shaking because I'm so disappointed and hurt from the things I've been hearing. I have heard so many horror stories, and all I see are you guys living in your bubble, not even trying to help or show any support. So please, I'm begging you. I'm just begging you as one person. There are others too, to just do what you can and stop doing this performative, listening and shaking your head. Some of you don't even care, it seems, and I don't understand why. You see the news, you see how horrible this is. Why can't you just do it? I know teenagers that have more emotional intelligence than what I'm seeing here, right? And that's not okay. We can allow change and growth. You guys have maybe not been on the right side in the past, but you can be on the right side now and going forward. I understand at one point this meant something different to you, but now there's a different situation and you need to do what you can, right? Because that's the right thing to do. That's the greater ideal here. So please, please, I'm begging you again, and I will keep begging you as long as I can to just do what is right. Have some empathy for your brothers and sisters out there. I understand a lot of people have family members who are cops that have lost their lives. This isn't necessarily about an attack on them. It's not an attack on them. What we're trying to do is support the Black lives that are being actively oppressed for no, good reason, right? And that's what this line is a reminder of. That is being used by hate groups, right? Black Lives Matter is not being used by hate groups. It's the opposite of that. It's trying to squash those hate groups. So please, just recognize the difference. It is a very simple difference, actually. It's not too complicated. You don't have to be very educated to understand the basic difference. And I just really hope you guys will see the reason. Please don't be defensive. This isn't an attack on you necessarily. It's just about recognizing the problem at large. So please see it with an open mind and open heart and do what you think you can and what is right deep down inside. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Okay, is that it?
No more hands, Kathy.
All right. I'd like to close public comment and move to comment by township committee members.
Move to close public comment.
Move a
Second.
motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, comment from township committee members. Who would like to go first? Dr. Pascucci?
I guess I'll go first because not many people have the gonads they should. Okay, now let's get to it. All life matters. Black lives matter. I don't want to hear it. My problem is when people don't agree with people, they get called a racist and an ignoramus and they don't know and they don't care. I certainly do care. My whole life I cared. I try not to bring race in at all, and people don't like that. I don't want to put us in compartments, black, white, green with red spots on your ass. I don't care. We are one people, one race, the human race, and I do not want to be put in categories. The Black Lives Matter movement, I have to say it. They're putting out this false narrative, and I truly believe it's false. And don't come after me and say I'm a racist because I don't believe it. I do not believe, and the data I read does not show me that Black people are getting slaughtered and tortured and killed by police more than anyone else. That is not true. Now, I'm not saying all the cops are perfect, and I'm certainly not saying there's not racism and Black people aren't getting the shaft in a lot of ways, but I do not, in my heart and in my mind, believe that the police departments, not only in Holmdel, in this country are doing that. The data does not support it. By having a blue line has nothing to do with anything else. I understand firmly from all the comments tonight that certain people might think it's a racist line. It is not. It is a line just saying that men, women, Black, white, yellow, brown, put their lives at risk for us and need to be recognized. In 2016, 5 officers were killed in one day because someone didn't like them. One day. That's why the line was painted in Holmdel, and it was painted to support them and to support our police. It should stay. Please, we got to get together. We got to get together with love and not hate. And I'm sorry, you can say whatever you want. The BLM movement is hateful. We are one people, we are one race, and if someone wants to go through my background and look it up, 30 years of pediatrician, show me one person said I'm a racist. Oh, and I shouldn't be defensive. Every one of these young people is saying if I don't agree with them, I have an issue. I don't have an issue. I truly believe that is not the problem. Police brutality and abuse of people of color, I don't buy it. And that's my opinion. And I have a right to it. And again, that's not saying there's not racism and Black people aren't getting the shaft in a lot of ways. But that's what I believe. I believe our police are everyone. They're all of us. And that line stays if I have a chance to vote on it. I understand people might find it offensive, but it is not offensive. It is offensive in their head. And I would vote to keep it. And if people want to go into my background, please look it up. Probation officer, 5 years, juvenile and domestic relations court, fraternity in college, only interracial fraternity, Pershing rifles. There wasn't any other. We were put behind the garbage cans where you brought the trays back by all the white fraternities were around the outside. I'm still on the juvenile conference committee. I was on the school board. All these people that talk, I respect them, but do something. Become a big brother and sister. Get out into the poor community and do some good instead of fighting over a blue line. It's gonna stay. I know I'm passionate, but I love all people. Thank you.
Thank you. Other township committee members?
Deputy Mayor, I'll jump in. I just want to thank all the residents and non-residents for voicing their opinion tonight. Contrary to what you may or may not believe, we do listen to everything that you say. And the deputy mayor and I have had some conversations about this issue, and the conversations will continue. I do take offense to people who judge us when they really don't know us and they demand things, whether it's in an email or in conversation tonight. I don't believe that's an appropriate way to have a dialogue, and it just creates more isolation between the blue lives, the black lives, and the all lives matter. So with that, Deputy Mayor, I'm going to reserve my comments for the future as we continue to discuss how to find a solution to this very difficult problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Santana?
Sure, Deputy Mayor. Couple of points that were made. I just want to clarify a few things. First of all, I did read a statement 2 meetings ago supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And I did say that we cannot be silent in the face of George Floyd's murder. And I did say that there is systemic racial oppression in this country, and that we need to do everything in our power to address that. I also want to point out that I was, as the township committee person, joined our administrator in the march from the school to town hall. So I was part of the march. However, I don't want to be emotional. I wanted us to see both sides of this issue because it is a difficult issue. It is not an easy issue. You may think it is easy from your point of view, but it is not. In fact, I wrote an article addressing that in the Patch today, providing you an analogous racist example that I encountered in my life. It was not about me, it was someone else, but it was a very analogous example that highlighted how both sides cannot see the other person's point of view and are at odds and are in different dimensions. And they think the answer is a zero-sum game. My position on this is that it's not a zero-sum game, and it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game if you're willing to sit with the other side and see their points of view. I heard all the folks today expressing very good points of view on both sides. So I really think just negating the other person's point of view is not going to get us to the answer. The real way to resolve this problem is to look at it logically and address this. I agree that the blue line issue nationally could be a symbolism for that have been co-opted by racial groups. However, in our town, we are living and dealing with local issues. Our police is hired by our municipality, not the state, not the federal government. So and I have the highest regard for our police force here and our chief, John Medichevsky, who marched with us, who were part of the group marching from the town hall to the, from the school to the town hall. So I believe that resolution has to be, if both sides, we can arrive at a resolution if both sides are willing to sit together and decide how best to honor our police, and at the same time, how to address the Black Lives Matter movement and the systemic racial oppression that exists in our society. I do agree that both things exist, and therefore it cannot be mutually exclusive. And we need to resolve this in a more intelligent way and not in a very emotional way. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would just like to say, along with Mr. Santana, that I did speak at a previous board township committee meeting, and that I do believe that Black Lives Matter, and I do believe that people of color at this particular time in our country in particular are facing incredible adversity, whether it be from the COVID and the pandemic. And again, those of you who, most of you are not frequently at our meetings, early on in this pandemic, I said, this will be a test of our humanity. And this is how I look at this, as a test of our humanity and how we can reach out to each other, humans to humans, and have conversations and better understand each other. And I think this is a first step. This was a conversation, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. We have to have it over this Zoom format, which is not the best for facilitating conversation. So I would ask two things. I would ask, first of all, that everyone who cares about this issue on either side finds someone from the other side of the issue and has a further conversation with them and listens. That is the hardest thing to do. And that's what I've been trying to do tonight. I have 4 pages of notes and I'm going to think about it because yes, it does require thought and reflection. All right. I think as a community, what this shows me is that we have a long ways to go and we have to have a lot more conversation. And whether we erase the line or not is not going to solve our problems. Maybe that's a start, but it doesn't solve the problem. And the problem is that we have to speak to one another and we have to do it respectfully and we have to listen to each other. And that's what I've been doing with some of my colleagues, is having those conversations and having those difficult conversations. So we're going to continue to do that. And I'm going to ask you all to do that as well. And hopefully we can find a way to move forward. There are several, and I would welcome constructive ideas on how we can move forward. And I think that's what's really important, is ways that we can listen and talk and work together so that everyone in this community feels welcome and respected, no matter who they are. So, so that's where we are right now. And I think if there are no other comments from Township Committee people, we can move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion? Do I have
Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
No.
The ayes carry.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Good night,
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Good night.